So Dana White and the UFC have recently announced two big welterweight matchups that I want to talk about and break down in this video. Guys, we got to clap it up, man. We got to clap it up for Colby Chaos Covington because this dude signed on the dotted line December 14th, UFC Fight Night Tampa, to take on Joaquin Buckley. I mean, when I saw the news, I was clicking on the UFC page to make sure that this was the actual UFC account because on X, there's all these fake accounts and all this stuff. I was like, is this real? Like, is this for real? Like, Colby Covington's fighting Joaquin Buckley. We are about to see Colby Covington fight an actual contender. But other than fighting a guy in a where he gets an he just walks into a title shot, an undeserved shot that he shouldn't get. He's actually fighting a contender for the opportunity to maybe fight for a title again. Like, I never thought we were going to see it. I never thought we were going to see the day. So I just got to give Colby his props, man. But listen, that's an interesting fight, which we're going to discuss in this video as well. But then there's also Ian Garry, who was originally supposed to fight Joaquin Buckley, is now going to be taking on Shavkat Rakhmonov in a 5-round co-main event at UFC 310. They elevated Pantoja and Asakura to the main event spot. These are two outstanding matchups in the welterweight division, and we got to give the UFC their credit, right? I know a lot of the times we're kind of hard on the UFC and Dana White, and some of the matchmaking just seems like a load of BS at times. This is really, really good matchmaking because, one, there's no interim title on the line, right? For 310, we were talking about we were hearing maybe it's going to be Shavkat versus somebody for the interim belt. Is it going to be Usman? Which that would have been a disgrace because he's on a 3-fight losing streak. It would have been even more disgraceful if Colby Covington got the shot, considering that awful performance against Leon Edwards. It should have been either Buckley or Garry getting the opportunity. The deck has been shuffled. Ian Garry slides in there to take on Shavkat Rakhmonov, which is an outstanding matchup that I want to start on first. Then we'll talk about Colby Covington versus Joaquin Buckley. But guys, Shavkat versus Ian Garry is such a great style clash, right? And two dudes that somebody's always got to go, right? And whenever you get that on the line, it just adds a little bit of extra spice to it. Because when I watch Ian Garry and Shavkat, they're both tall for the weight class. They're both rangy. And they are two guys that are on the rise in this division, that are in a position here to whoever wins, we have a very clear-cut number one contender at 170 who then will take on Bilal Muhammad, because I know a lot of people are like, look, Shavkat should get the shot, Usman maybe, or whatever, and it was kind of like, yes, Shavkat would probably be the most deserving, but his best win is, he went out there and dominated Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, goes out there and kind of a barn burner with Jeff Neal. There wasn't really that performance against a top 5 guy in the weight class to be like, he's really next in line, right? Where we saw Hamzat, who doesn't have many fights at 185, goes out there against the number one guy in Robert Whittaker, decimates him. It's like, okay, you get a title shot. To where Shavkat, he had some solid wins over Jeff Neal, Neil Magny, and Wonderboy Thompson, but it's not like, oh, well, he was just a clear-cut guy in my eyes. Like, I don't think he was. If they were going to give someone the shot, he should have been the guy. But I'm rambling here because, look, Shavkat is a very dangerous guy, right? People are going to look at the resume and go, well, he hasn't fought that top 5 dude to kind of solidify himself. But make no mistake about it. This dude is as dangerous as it gets in the 170-pound division. He's tall. He's rangy. He's got good power in a lot of the things that he does on the feet. But it's the grappling, man. He's got outstanding entries, really good takedowns. He's very good in the clinch, and he has a nasty guillotine to where if he's able to get a hold of your neck, it's going to be a real problem. But guys, when I watched the film, this is why I kind of waited to make this video a little bit here. I was watching some Shavkat Rakhmonov fights, and as good as he is with the grappling, as dangerous as he is, he throws spinning wheel kicks, jumping knees. I mean, he's got everything, and he's got good power in his hands. He's fighting a guy that he's trained with in Ian Garry. They've trained over at Kill Cliff together. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the sparring footage where they were kind of going back and forth. I think Ian Garry is going to be a real problem for Shavkat. I never, a few fights ago, I don't know if that's something I would have said, but watching what we've seen from Ian Garry over his past few fights, against Michael Venom Page, coming out there displaying outstanding grappling. He's been over at Shoot to Box, training with Charles Oliveira and some really, really good training partners, working on the grappling. And we already know he has really, really good striking. He's a good kickboxer. He's tall, rangy, fast. He's got really, really good lateral movement. I think that's a recipe for a problem for Shavkat Rakhmonov in this matchup, because one thing about this fight is I think Ian Garry is the much better striker, right? I do think Shavkat has, he has the potential when he does land to hurt you, but I watched that Cowboy Oliveira fight back where it was Shavkat, he was kind of a little earlier in the UFC at the time, I believe. He was getting touched up by Cowboy. Cowboy Oliveira, and it's like, yeah, he was a fun fighter, but he's not top of the food chain. He doesn't have outstanding speed, and those straight shots down the middle were landing, and I'd like to think if Ian Garry can slide back and throw that counter right hand, I think that lands. I think it lands nicely on Shavkat Rakhmonov, and not to mention, Shavkat doesn't do a great job getting his lead leg out of the way. And if you're looking at someone in the division who has outstanding calf kicks, really, really just good overall kicks, that's Ian Garry. Ian Garry has nasty calf kicks. You saw it against Neil Magny, and I'm not saying Shavkat's Neil Magny, but he does have kind of a slower, stuck in the mud type of style to where he likes to move forward, but he's not very elusive. He kind of just wades forward, a little bit of head movement, but his head kind of sits on the center line. His lead leg is available, and the way that Ian Garry moves laterally, side to side, I think Shavkat's going to have a hard time getting a hold of him. Now, the question is, if he gets a hold of Ian, what happens, right? Because we know that Ian Garry, we saw some improvements against Michael Venom Page, but that was all offensive grappling, right? We know that there was some issues there with MVP in terms of, against the grappling, but that was still impressive what Ian Garry did. I think that was still very impressive what he did, because in order to go in there and do that to MVP, there's guys that have taken MVP down, but they can't hold him down and control him. Ian Garry did just that, so I would like to think that his grappling is improved, and I would like to think that it's going to be hard for Shavkat to get a hold of him and just dominate him. Now, I will say this. Shavkat is a much better grappler, obviously. He's got dangerous submissions. He's got good power in the things that he does on the feet. But I think if Ian Garry, because this is a 5-rounder, I think if he can stay safe early on, if he can, set things up, work the kicks to the body, attack the lead leg of Shavkat Rakhmonov, make it harder for him to get in on those takedowns, and not just be a sitting duck and a stationary target, which a lot of guys, like Jeff Neal's got good footwork, right? But guys like Neil Magny, they're stationary. There's no movement. There's no elusive footwork from Neil Magny. He kind of just stands there, and his hands are kind of, like he's got like Parkinson's hands. Neil Magny, his hands are like always like this, and he's just stuck in the mud. And it's like, well, what are you doing, right? We saw Neil Magny out there against Carlos Prates. It's like Neil Magny's kind of just been a stepping stone for these up and coming contenders. To go in there and do what you did to Wonderboy, that's impressive to track him down. But we've seen Wonderboy's had issues defending the grappling. And again, styles make fights. And what we have seen from Ian Garry thus far, the footwork, the lateral movement, the timing, the speed that this guy has on the feet, I think it's going to be a real problem for Shavkat. And if Shavkat cannot get this fight to the floor, Ian Garry's going to bust him up on the feet, man. And you don't have to like Ian Garry. You can think he's weird and all these different things. But in terms of the fighting ability, this dude is very, 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 very good on the feet. And people are going to say, well, we didn't want to stand in Michael Venom Page. Why would you? Why would you? If you're trying to, win a world title in the weight class, why are you going to stand on the feet with MVP and risk it? I know it could have been more entertaining, and yeah, it was kind of a boring fight, but I thought it was impressive. The only guy that we really saw hold MVP down like that was Storley over in Bellator, and he's an outstanding grappler. And Ian Garry did something very similar. That's impressive. It's impressive. But going in there against Shavkat Rakhmonov, he's going to have to be careful, because if Shavkat's able to back him up against the fence, able to close him down, able to avoid some of those, getting his leg, ripped to shreds by Ian Garry, I think Shavkat can get a hold of him, take him down, work the grappling, and eventually find a submission. But I'm leaning right now, guys. I never thought I'd say this. I'm leaning towards Ian Garry at the moment. Now, this is an early kind of thoughts here, and as we get closer to the fight, I'll get my official prediction. I think the footwork, the speed, the timing of Ian Garry, and the improved grappling, I think it's going to be a little bit of a problem for Shavkat in this fight. I'm just being honest. And again, this is a true number one contender fight. Good matchmaking by the UFC. It kind of sucks for Shavkat in a way, because he was supposed to be fighting Bilal for the title. And now props to Shavkat and props to Ian, because a lot of guys don't want to fight Rakhmonov. Ian Garry's like, I'll fight his ass. He steps in, and it's like, okay, well, title shots on the line here. Even though Shavkat already had one, he's risking it as well. Respect to both guys. It's an incredible stylistic matchup. Like I said, I think the speed, the footwork, and the timing of Ian Garry, I think it's going to be a little bit of a problem for Shavkat, man. I really do. But moving on. Colby Covington, Joaquin Buckley. I already said in the beginning of the video, I was fact-checking the hell out of this. I was waiting for a community note from X to show up and be like, this is fake, this is false information. I never thought we'd see the day, man. I never thought, I'm being like joking here, but I'm being serious. I never thought that we were going to see Colby fight an actual contender on the rise in this division. I just never thought we would see it, because the only time we see it is when he's fighting for a belt. It's the only time we see it, when he fought Usman for the title, when he fought Leon Edwards for the title, because outside of that, he beats Jorge Masvidal, and old Jorge Masvidal gets a title shot. Beats an old Tyron Woodley. Beats RDA, which to get the interim, or for the interim title, that was, RDA was kind of still around. He goes in there, beats Robbie Lawler. Like, a lot of those wins, these guys were past their prime, man. And Colby Covington's track record was going and beating up on an old washed up guy, then getting a title shot. And that was kind of the pattern. And now, we can't clown him for this one, man. We cannot clown him for this, because all jokes aside, this is a damn hard fight for Colby. A damn hard fight. And if you want me to be honest, it might be the hardest fight for him out of everybody. One of them. You know, with Shavkat, you got the submissions, but he's kind of labored on the feet, and I think Colby would have struggled there, right? Every matchup is a little bit different. But I really believe that Joaquin Buckley is a serious problem for Colby in this matchup, because with Colby, it's always been the cardio, the pace. He's going to throw 1,000 strikes, and even though they don't have much power on him, it's punches and bunches, level changing, punches and bunches, level changing, and it's a lot to keep up with. It's a lot to keep up with. You know what we talk about Max Holloway and the volume and cutting the angles, and you just know you're in for a long night, because you're just going to be getting hit with a million things. They might not be the hardest of shots, but there's just so much going on. That's what Colby Covington does. So all BS aside, as much as Colby Covington kind of is a little bit annoying with the whole shtick that he's got, the little fake persona he has, he is still a very good fighter. His striking has improved. He's a little bit more technical, but it's really the wrestling, the relentless pace, the way that he is just able to keep it going. But I struggle to see him beating Joaquin Buckley, man. Like I do. Buckley is one of the guys where I made a video on here talking about, you know, the dark horses in the divisions, the, you know, guys that could cause some issues for the champions. And I threw out Buckley, and people were like, oh, that's dumb. Why would you do that? And a few of you were like, hey, I kind of see that there. Now I think you're starting to see it, because I picked him to knock out Wonderboy Thompson, and what you see with Buckley is a guy that he's like Ian Garry. He goes in there and he's like, well, I'm going to stick and move. I'm going to do all this. Where Buckley, there's none of that. He just goes in there and he just fights. He's got the Mike Tyson peekaboo style. He explodes forward, leaps into his hooks. He's got ridiculous power. He's got good movement. He's scooting around in there, kind of like Jeff Neal to a degree a little bit, right? I'm not saying he's as clean as a boxer as Jeff Neal, but he's kind of got good movement, moves side to side, explodes in and out, and he's a lower center of gravity guy. And a very important note coming into this as well, Buckley used to fight at 85. Buckley used to fight at 85, and that's an important thing to note, because Colby Covington, he damn near looks like a 55er. There's guys at 155 that look bigger than Colby. They do, like Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler, those dudes, like, I think they're bigger than Colby, or close enough. Like, Colby looks like a 55er. He does not walk around much heavier than 170 pounds. And Buckley, you know, come fight night, he's going to be a lot bigger than Colby in there. And out of a lot of the matchups that we've seen from Colby, yes, Kamaru Usman does hit hard. Yes, Leon Edwards is a very technical striker. This is the most powerful guy I think Colby Covington has faced. I really do believe that, because we saw Buckley at 185. He was kind of like this journeyman dude. Yeah, he had a highlight reel, spinning back kick, and all this and that. But ever since he's moved to 170 and kind of dialed in the weight and really got himself in gear, he's a problem. He's a real problem at 170. He's got good speed. And the big thing with Buckley, yes, it's the explosiveness. He's got power in his hands. We just saw what he did to Wonderboy. But it's the fact that he is really well-rounded. He's rounded out his game. He's rounded out his game incredibly well. We saw him out there against Ruziboev, taking him down, winning minutes in terms of the control time. So these people that are just going to say, well, Covington, he's going to put the pace on him. He's just going to shoot for takedowns and take him down. I'm not so convinced that Colby Covington's just going to go in there and out-grapple Buckley. Buckley's a big dude. And the thing about wrestling, Colby is not like Hamzat or Islam, where he's got the Sambo style of where, you know, when he's taking people down, he's looking for submissions right away. That's not Colby's game. That's not his game. He's got that very American-based wrestling style to where, you know, he sets up his, you know, he throws some shots, level changes, he wears on you. He tires you out, makes you either give up or wins a decision by winning on control time. And I just struggle to see him beating Buckley, man. How does that formula beat a dude like Buckley, who's going in there, finishing people, whose cardio has improved since he's went down to 170? Because the other thing is, when you drop a weight class, you're going to be lighter, you're going to feel better. And what does that mean? Well, you're working on more of your cardio. If you actually have to cut weight, well, how do you get the weight off? Well, yeah, I mean, you do the sauna and all the different things, but you're working your cardio. You are, and we've seen drastic improvements in the game of Buckley, man. We have, in terms of just everything. His striking's improved, his footwork, his timing, his speed, just everything overall. This is a very, very dangerous fight for Colby Covington. And if I'm Buckley, I'm like, where's the danger here? As long as I don't get tired, where's the danger? I'm just going to get wrestled. I'm going to take no damage. Colby doesn't really inflict much damage. This isn't Kamaru Usman on the feet. Buckley's a better striker than Usman. He absolutely is. You know? So out of everybody that you look at, and you saw Jorge Masvidal, he had a lot of successful defeat against Colby Covington. I'm not saying Buckley's this world-class striker, but he's a problem. He's a real problem. You saw how Colby was kind of afraid to go after Leon Edwards. I know he said he broke his foot and all these different things, but he was very timid in that matchup. And one thing I can assure you, Buckley has some serious power. You saw how he was able to put away Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. If he lands on Colby Covington, it's going to be a problem. And my concern for Colby, what is he going to do that's going to back Buckley up? What's he going to do to get him back? He doesn't have the power. You know, is he just going to be able to go in there and just wrestle him to death the whole time? I mean, that's his only way to win this fight. It's the only way Colby Covington can win. If he comes in with a wrestle-heavy game plan, just sits there and decides to level change, throw some shots, level change. Because outside of that, I think Colby Covington is getting knocked out. I think he's getting finished. And I think that this would be the last time that we see Colby Covington fight inside the UFC. But like I said, if he's able to drown Buckley in the later rounds with the pace and the pressure, can stay safe on the feet, I can see where Colby could possibly find a way to get this one done. But out of all the matchups between Shavkat, Ian, and Buckley, I mean, Buckley's got the dangerous power, but outside of that, I think Gary would have been a problem for Covington, and I think Shavkat would have been as well. So maybe out of all of it, maybe Buckley's a better stylistic matchup for Colby, maybe, but I'm just not convinced of that. I think this is a very hard fight. I'm leaning towards Buckley in this matchup. It's been a long time, man, since we've seen Colby actually fight a contender to put himself in position for maybe another title opportunity. I don't think we see it. I still don't. I'm still not convinced. Like, even with a win over Buckley, like, we're going to have other guys waiting in the wings. We got Jack Della. We have, we got Shavkat and Gary fighting. It's an interesting time to be alive at 170 pounds, man. But I want to hear from you all down in the comments. Let me know who you guys think are going to win these matchups. Subscribe to the channel. Help me out. I would appreciate it. See you next time.